every single year of the best movie of the year. And this movie lost to Sideways.
Welcome to Recotopia, a happy home for recommended movies, shows, and music from two people you can definitely trust. Trustability varies by region, no guarantees implied.
And now, here are your hosts, Aaron Dicer and Jeremy Scott.
As Warden, I can approve buying a copy of Dance with Dragons for the prison library to go up on the Game of Thrones shelf. Now, the only problem is that The Winds of Winter and Dream of Spring have yet to be published, so those aren't available. No. Well, I can't do anything about what I can't control.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to Recotopia, episode 158. I am Jeremy Scott, and joined by Aaron Dicer.
Hi-do-ly-ho, cauliflower arenos.
All right, cauliflowerinos.
Cauliflower arenos. Yes,
I almost made it, Arnold. Cauliflower. Welcome, as usual, to the chat, who's tuning in live to watch us talk. And we appreciate you showing up and weighing in. And yeah, we got a lot to talk about today. The big recommend is Logan Lucky, a movie that I have now seen 3 times and cannot wait to discuss. But before we get into that, we got to do our small recommends.
It's no big deal.
Itty bitty living space.
It's so small and light.
It's small, it's tiny, it's petite, it's wee.
And I'm going to start with a small recommend that I watched because Aaron recommended it to me, and that is Adolescence on Netflix, a new 4-part miniseries that rocked my shit.
Unbelievable.
It's such a groundbreaking show for a number of reasons. I think even if it weren't superbly acted and deeply profound, I would still love it for what it does structurally and how it goes about shooting and telling its story. Each episode is a one-shot, a oneer, if you will, and I'm certain there are digital cuts somewhere, but even if they exist, in between those cuts, it's still a freaking ballet that's happening every single episode, and people have to do that in conjunction with staying in character, knowing their lines, acting, and it's just an accomplishment that is like theater on film almost. And it very much puts you in the moment. My wife said, just the camera work is making me anxious. And I said, I kind of think that's the point. You're part of this. The other thing that impresses me about this show, and I will say at the outset, this is the show that is investigating the murder of a teenage girl in a small British town, and the arrest of a teenage boy for that murder. And every episode is a different part of that news cycle, if you will. The first episode is day 1 when he's arrested. The second episode is day 3. They're doing interviews at the school. And one of the things I appreciate about this show is it continued to surprise me. Like halfway through the second episode, I paused it and turned to my wife and I said, of course, they're going to have eventually a trial. And with the episodes being one-shots, 52 minutes, like what section of the trial will they show? I'm thinking it'll be closing arguments and then a quick verdict. They don't ever show the trial. You never see the trial. And I think it's better for it. And if you try and predict where this show will go, you will likely be surprised. This is created by Stephen Graham and also written by. He's the showrunner and star. He plays the father of the arrested boy. Stephen Graham created Boiling Point, a movie about a kitchen that then was turned into a 4 or 5 episode miniseries called Boiling Point. And I tell you what, he needs to do more writing, show running, and producing because the way this show chooses to examine this particular crime and the perspectives it gives us at the time it gives gives it to us is just, it's just deeply profound. There's so much to talk about when you come out of this series. And, you know, it's a heavy watch. I don't want you going into this thinking everything's going to wrap up with bows and strawberries, and but it's got a lot of stuff to say, not just about masculinity. It does masculinity a lot, but gender roles, power. It's just, it's gripping. The third episode does something I've never seen a TV show do, and it just gives two actors the entire time to just
Act
and win Emmys. And Aaron, you have some thoughts about this as well.
I absolutely gobsmacked by this show, as many people were. It's really interesting because you could easily seeing it be sold as conceptual or gimmicky with the one-shot nature of each episode, and that so quickly just becomes foundational. It like the onerness of it so quickly just becomes what it is and not the point, that it's just this extra impressive thing that, by the way, is done purposefully to pull you into these sections of this story, right? Yes. Like, it's not just, hey, look at the athletic camera work we can do. It's, we're putting you inside this situation. I think The Pit, which I talked about recently, does a great job of this too, where the real-time aspect actually adds to your experience with the material. You mentioned the third episode. I think it is the standout, although the first episode gives it a run for its money. I think the first episode is really impressive, and one of the reasons we're trying not to like give any kind of spoilers or plot kind of spoilers in this is because the first episode is so good at subverting your expectations and kind of taking you to a place you didn't know you were going. And that's part of the magic trick of the show as well. But you're absolutely right. I think Owen Cooper is the name of the kid in this. If I'm wrong, that's just something I Googled, and I apologize, but I do want to give a shout out specifically to him, who many are saying maybe the youngest Emmy winner ever come the Emmy time, and he is that good. He is worthy of conversation with all the incredible actors who are doing miniseries and TV and all of that. Aaron Doherty, who he plays across from in episode 3, is also astonishing in that episode. Like you said, I've never seen anything like it. It just owned me. That episode absolutely owned me. So much so that I just felt like episode 4 was going to be a difficult, come down, from that. I was like, what can they do in episode 4? And they found a way to make episode 4 this completely different thing that the story needs to help us find our way through. And I can't send enough praises onto this show. It's also, it's 4 hours. It's a 4-hour investment, 1 hour at a time. And it's just so funny. Netflix just drops this stuff, man. They don't advertise it. They don't, and they just drop it, and people find it, and it's wild.
Their business model just is wild to me. They don't care about that. They've never done good marketing for unless they're pushing something for an Oscar. You never see them advertise anything. And it's always this. I find out it's something that's been out for a couple of weeks because somebody else has watched it. This is a 99 on Rotten Tomatoes, by the way. So all the critics are giving it love. I can't say enough about it. But I'll stop now.
I'm not going to stop now. I did only because I wanted to mention one other thing, which is you mentioned the themes involved, and masculinity is definitely one of them. I think there's also a real willingness to explore the nuance and difficulty of radicalization, and the idea of how susceptible young people are to ideas of what it means to be themselves, and how difficult it can be as a parent to find that balance of being involved in your kid's life, but also letting them find their individuality and find out who they are, and and those kind of things. And you realize very quickly in this new generation, which my kids are older now, so like I don't know what it's like to parent a kid, coming up now,
right?
Where everything, because my kids were on the cusp of cell phones, right? Like they were just becoming, when the iPhone came in like 2004, 5, 7, 6, somewhere in that range, my kids were already all in school. By then. And, adolescents now, like they can be influenced by a million different things. Yeah. And to be on guard against a million different possible toxic influences against your children, like it's impossible. And this show does such a great job of dealing with that, both from an adolescent's view. And yeah, it's
I imagine, again, I have no kids. Don't take my advice. I imagine you have to be super proactive and talking to them about the dangers and the things out there that wish to radicalize them, rather than shielding them from it completely and hoping they don't come across it, in recess or something.
Yeah, but, the issue is, as with so many humans, we want to find other authority sources than our parents. And so, like, your parents are just these humans that have been there from the beginning, and you're not sure you trust their motives all the time. Like, is it about them? Is it about, do you have to be a good boy or girl because it makes them look bad if you're not? Like all these things you go through when you're growing up and trying to separate, and distinguish those things as you're formulating your thinking. As you're formulating your ability to even process things, it's just an impossible hurdle. And everybody just does their best, man. It's rough. Yeah. So there you go. And Adolescence goes into all of that and will make you feel all sorts of things throughout it. So
it sure will. Also, don't forget, in England, when they say chips, they mean fries.
A very specific type of fry, by the way. Like more like a steak fry is like what chips are.
So then what do they call like a McDonald's fry?
Is my understanding. Yes. American fries,
wacky
French
British.
fries. Yeah. So, but chips are a very specific potato.
The thicker, wider ones.
Yeah.
Right.
At least from the Chippies I went to when I was over there. So,
is a Chippy a shop that sells primarily chips?
Chips and like pies, like meat pies, and like some.
Why don't we have that here?
Kebabs, like doner kebab beef and that kind of stuff, and fish. Lots of amazing cod everywhere you go at the Chippies.
Why can't I go down the street, walk in a place and order a thing of fries and then choose my toppings and go sit down and carve out?
Well, let's talk about cultures. I don't know. I imagine that has a lot to do with the fact that they're an island and they're, an hour away from the sea, no matter where they live. So the, fish is that fish and chips kind of fried food kind of thing just takes over, I imagine. So
I love a good fish and chips.
Yeah, there you go. And by the way, I've never had fried foods as good as from the Chippies in England. It's a whole nother level. It's so good. All right. I guess that takes it to me in my small recommend. I would like to state before I say what I am small recommending that I found this on my own. Nobody recommended this to me. There was an entire Discord movement involved in getting me to watch this movie. I didn't have one of my best friends telling me on a daily basis I needed to watch this movie. I found Wicked Little Liars on my own and decided to watch it and loved it. This movie is so fun. So funny. This is another one that just kind of came out last year and just kind of flew under the radar. I wonder if it was more just a UK thing and didn't really make its way here until it popped up on Netflix recently, because I didn't even hear about it until within the last month or so. But it is, I'm trying to think of the best way to describe this movie. And I think the best way to do it is just to say that Olivia Colman and Jessie Buckley play opposite extremes of the idea of feminine interaction with a masculine world. I think that might be a way to say it. But the plot is based around these absolutely profane letters that keep showing up at Olivia Colman's house about her, that call her all sorts of profane names, the worst things you can think of. And it's a try to discover who wrote these wicked little letters. And so, yeah, it's really funny, but it's also really moving, and has something to say about being a woman in a man's world. So, especially during the time when it takes place. So, yeah, check it out.
Do they have any chips?
I believe chips are mentioned. I believe chips are mentioned. I don't know. Lolly in the chat, who's from UK, says it released there in April last year. So, and again, I just heard about it. So, very recently, a very Anglophile small recommends section.
Yeah, look at us.
A lot of England coming through.
Throwing it up to Big Brother. Uncle England.
Uncle England.
Oh, no. All right. Well, after the two small recommends, it is time to move into this week's big recommend, which is Logan Lucky. That was Aaron's recommend. And Aaron, why don't you take it?
I will do.
I'm fine. It's just that you're so big.
It's so huge.
It's a good rule, but this is bigger than rules.
It's bigger on the inside.
Is it? I noticed.
Logan Lucky was Steven Soderbergh's 592nd film and his 14th film of 2017, which was a down year for him because it was only August. The movie starts with John Denver singing us into the setting of Boone County, West Virginia. Channing Tatum's Jimmy Logan is working on a pickup with his daughter Sadie and going over some John Denver legends. And even though she likes the song that he's talking about, she doesn't think it would be good for the pageant. She says it's no Super Freak, that's for sure. I think that's what she was probably thinking. Little Miss Sunshine reference. Later at work, Channing Tatum gets fired for limping, and now he's on to see his sister Melly, played by Riley Keough, at her hairstyling job, where he realizes he messed up and his sister had to drive his daughter to recital practice. So it's on to apologize to the ex, Bobby Joe, played by Katie Holmes. He does that. He grabs an ice cream date with his apparently fat-shamed daughter, and then apparently learns the nuanced innuendos of Rihanna lyrics from his what would those be? Cousin? I don't even know. Ex. What do you call ex kids, Jeremy? Like if your ex has other kids from another family?
I don't think they're anything.
Okay, his nothings. He learns that from his nothings.
My daughter's brothers.
It turns out his ex and the kid might be moving. So then it's on to see his brother Clyde, who lost an arm. Part of an arm in Iraq, but still bartends for jerk faces with bad accents that look like Seth MacFarlane. Some amputeist wisecracks are made, and Magic Mike has had enough, picks a selfie fight with the bar patrons while his brother casually lights their ride on fire. And wait, did this movie just say cauliflower to me? The next morning, the brothers meet over some burnt bacon to discuss the cauliflower proclamation and the robbery to-do list that is hanging on his fridge. The target, the Charlotte Motor Speedway. The reason? Sinkholes in the infield led Jimmy to be working a job underneath the speedway and gave him an understanding of how the cash highway of tubes sending the raceway's dollars around the raceway works. But they're going to need a vault guy, so enter Joe Bang. James Blonde isn't much interested in Robin and just wants some sock-salted hard-boiled eggs, thank you very much. He doesn't think the job will work, both because he's actually in jail right now, but also because he has a stash of cash buried under a tree swing that he's about to find out was stolen by some fish's wife, Misty. Now he's on board because of that, but since Joe Bang is incarcerated, they will have to break him out. And he also wants his two brothers involved. So at the fair, Melly gets in a car convo with Pam's boyfriend from the office, and he wants everyone to know he is a big fan of Stick. Now it's on to the Bang brothers, who interrupt their game of toilet toss to get the moral reason for the robbery. And wait, is that 2017's Jack Quaid? After a lengthy discussion, the Bang Bros decide the moral reason is enough for them and the plan set in motion. First up, Clyde creates his own drive-through convenience store to get himself arrested and put away for 90 days with Joe Bang. They're incarcerated as well, now crafting something in the prison. And back home, Jimmy is helping his daughter with some spray tan and extensions so that we don't forget that the daddy-daughter bond is the central pathos of the film. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. Back to the heisting, dang it. Jimmy also gets stopped by a healthcare professional who wants the medical history of his tetanus situation, and so he decides to hit on the nurse Sylvia because he is not throwing away his tetanus shot. But then some bad news for the heisties as Jimmy finds out that the dig job they need to get access with is going to be finished early, and they have to move everything up a week, which means they'll be robbing the place on the busiest weekend of the year, so I guess it's time to call the baker. They use this baker to send a cake to Gleema, but also run into her car, so then she'll leave her cake in the vault, which is, of course, where you eat cakes, and also leave them there instead of cleaning up after them. They just sit there in vaults. That's what you do. They paint different cockroaches different colors to see which tube leads to the main vault, and it turns out someone diluted the Mountain Dew because it's a code pink. On to race day. After some explicit NASCAR porn, we get on to the prison escape that involves Joe Bang faking some food poisoning and Clyde just happening to be there to walk him to the bathroom. They've created a back way to the custom hiding boxes that they will now use to travel under the prison transport vehicle. A race war is then started in the cafeteria to provide cover for any missing convicts. Across town, the Bang brothers do some arson by numbers to take out the credit card machines, so it's a cash-only day at the old raceway now. Some more race stuff makes me wonder if Jeff Gordon's a bad actor or a bad race announcer, and while it's probably both, it's actually just a way to get into a puff piece on Dayton White, who talks about his body as an OS. And wait, is that 2017 Sebastian Stan? Back at the prison, the warden makes the most ridiculous statement in the entire movie about Game of Thrones and tries to make the convicts believe that Wikipedia is a trustworthy news source. Inside the stadium, we get a couple chemistry lessons on how gummy bears, salt, and bleach can create a Joe Bang in the tubes. The problem is the bomb missile gets stuck and then comes flying back at them still unexploded. Turns out that just like Jeremy's college girlfriend, he accidentally twisted the bag one too many times. This time, though, it works. And with smoke coming through the pipes, they call the race course security force and then send down a couple guys to check it out. Down in the sinkhole, the robbery begins in full force as the vacuum starts sucking the money out of the vault. When things get too crazy, they throw the machine in reverse, and Clyde's arm gets sucked in as well. After some panic, Jimmy promises Clyde he will get it back, and so they continue the sucking. The guards then intersect the Bang Bros, making a garbage run, and intersect Jimmy, going to find out why they are stalled. But they only seem to care about if anyone smells smoke. Jimmy fixes the door, and they get the money out. But Clyde is spotted by the family guy from earlier. But the boys manage to take the bumpy way out and then break back into prison disguised as firemen who need a single fire extinguisher shot to extinguish the fire. Meanwhile, little Sadie is ready to perform some Rihanna at her pageant, but when Jimmy shows up, she calls an audible to become one of 3 movies that year to use country roads as a plot point. In that moment, we realize that his daughter is his ultimate alibi in more ways than just the heisty ones. After some news position tells us that the money was actually found in a gas station, Hilary Swank shows up like she's doing a surprise cameo in The Hunt again. But this time, she's the FBI agent on the case, and she's figuring it out. But unfortunately, because of the combination of a prideful prison warden, some infuriating airtight alibis, a few complicated algorithms, and the racecourse being totally fine with the insurance settlement they got, the case is now closed. But what's that? The Logan siblings skimmed a few bags after everyone left and have set everyone involved up with some hefty sums. We eventually see the crew has regathered at the duct tape bar, including a stranger who hasn't let go of her intentions to solve her case. The movie ends by showing us that Jimmy did get Clyde's prosthetic back, which means 8 years later, this movie will inspire the TV show White Lotus by showing us that some solid entertainment can be found in a man completing a hand job for his brother. And that is Logan Lucky.
Jesus, man.
Jeremy,
Oh, man.
what did you think about Logan Lucky this time through?
I thought the White Lotus episode. Oh, sorry. It's going to take me a minute here to collect my thoughts. I don't believe that bacon was burnt, Aaron.
Oh, okay.
I think that bacon was perfectly
I agree,
cooked,
actually.
which is to say it was going to be burnt if it was cooked a little longer, which is perfect. That's where you want it. You want some crunch.
I agree.
In your bacon.
I agree. The bacon is the one thing where I almost like it closer to burnt.
Yeah, I'm like that with everything. Anyway, especially pepperonis. You burn those things. This movie, I'm just going to read my thoughts. Like usual, I have some stream of consciousness as I'm watching it kind of thoughts, and then I'll get into my overall thoughts. The movie starts pretty slow for as madcap and fast as it ends up being in the end. This time through, I was like, wow, it's taking its time, and not in a bad way, to put all the pieces on the board. I also noted that this movie could have been called Everyone Do a Fun Weird Voice.
Sure.
And that Adam Driver sounds like Tim Blake Nelson from The Watchmen show. If you played those two talking side by side, that's the same exact accent, and I love it. I'm not upset about it. The little girl playing the daughter is adorable. I don't know her name, but she's really cute. Like all good heist movies, this movie gives you information in bits and holds back some stuff for you. Like, go see the bear and get the bag he's holding for me. Doesn't pay off for a long time. Some stuff pays off in the next scene, like call the baker, and we're like, well, I wonder what that means. And then the next scene, there's a cake being delivered, and we can insinuate that was who the baker is. He sent that cake. He says in the prison, I got a proposition for you, Naaman, but we don't know what that is until the prison riot actually breaks out. That's what makes a good heist movie, I think. Giving you just enough without giving you the payoff. So we see them planning, shopping, building, but we don't really know what the heist is going to be until it happens. And that's something I really appreciate about this, as well as Ocean's 11. It's not surprising it's the same director. I love sudden Dwight Yoakam. Anytime we get a sudden Dwight Yoakam, I'm all for that. And I wrote down, especially after all the talk we've done about A Different Man, Sebastian Stan doesn't get enough love, man.
I agree.
His part in this movie is small, but he's hilarious. He is, I think, the Winter Soldier, like,
but this
while it probably did wonders for his bank account, it's not the kind of character that lets him show any of his acting range at all.
It's interesting because this movie did come out after Winter Soldier, right? Which was 2016, but it's very close after. Like, he certainly shot this before Winter Soldier came out.
No, because he cut his hair after Winter Soldier was shot to film this. So they were shot back to back.
Right, but I mean before Winter Soldier came out. I'm sure he had shot this before that movie was even out and people knew who he was. It was early enough that I don't remember when watching this going, oh, that's Bucky. Like, it was just more of like, you know, just another one of the characters. Same with Jack Quaid, which is why I mentioned him as well. Like, he hadn't become quote unquote Jack Quaid at that point. So it was just kind of interesting seeing them both in this.
Yeah, watch Hot Tub Time Machine and see Sebastian Stan in that. You'll be like, holy shit. Like, I had no idea at the time. I love the phrase napkin of demands that the warden says. I've got your napkin of demands. One of the things that makes that prison riot scene so hilarious is it's just a madhouse. We see them. Should we call for help? Should we not call for help? I don't know. And we cut away. And then when we cut back, so much time has passed. He's got a napkin of demands, and they're relatively calm, the prisoners, and now they're having negotiations. And it's that rapid progress where we skip the chunks that I think helps make that funny. I also think it's worth noting that this movie is 8 years old, filmed 9 years ago, and George R.R. Martin still has not delivered The Winds of Winter.
And has, I think, actively said he might not. Like,
I think he started to hint that he might not. And it's hard to blame him at this point. Once they made the show based on what he said the book was going to be, that kind of becomes, in a lot of people's eyes, the definitive version. It's hard to go back and write.
What a
your
weird
own,
situation, yeah.
This movie gives way too much screen time to Leanne Rimes singing the fourth verse of America the Beautiful. I don't think we need all of that. It was a good cut place right there. The bomb being gummy bears and bleach isn't nearly as funny as Adam Driver's reaction when he says, "We're supposed to believe that that's the thing."
Well, and
the dialogue.
and the fact that then he does a whole chemistry lesson. Like, the movie breaks for him to prove to them. It felt very Cinemasins. Like, it felt very like nitpicky. Like, no,
Yes.
commenters, you're wrong. This is, that's so funny.
I love the West Virginia dialogue, like that line. We're supposed to believe that that's the thing, but I also love the line that I think one of the Bang brothers says, "You changed the date, moved everything around. This whole job changed dramatically." One of the IMDb notes that I wrote down was that apparently Hilary Swank has top billing.
Oh,
in this
that's
movie,
wild.
even though she doesn't appear until an hour and 33 minutes have passed. I do think the heist is a little too well planned for the characters that we're seeing. I get that they're supposed to be relative underdogs,
right?
But this is an Ocean's level thinking plan. And then the Hilary Swank character at the end, I don't really get that inclusion. Not the character, but her in the final scene in the bar. An FBI agent showing up and suspecting something is one thing. She says to the warden, essentially, "Do you seriously not think 2 of your inmates could have escaped for 2 hours and snuck back in?" And she doesn't think she sounds like a lunatic. and so the fact that they have her in the bar at the end, I think, suggests she might eventually catch them. And I wish the movie would at least be more open about that. It spends the whole movie talking about how these guys are the unluckiest family in the whole world. How are they ever going to pull something off? They always get screwed over by bad luck. I mean, let's either embrace that or embrace shedding that. But Hilary Swank being in the bar at the end is kind of like having your cake and eating it too, in that regard. And the little girl is a fan of Top Chef. I wrote that in all caps. It made me very, very happy.
She can tell you about gelato, man. The finer points.
They shot this movie in 36 days. That's insane.
Sounds like
Daniel
Steven.
Craig stayed in character the entire shoot. Fortunately for everybody else, he was only on set for 2 weeks. And then I have to read this part. And again, IMDb trivia can be written by your ignorant uncle. We don't really know that it's like verifiable.
Yeah.
But it says, since the Charlotte Motor Speedway was reimbursed by their insurance carrier, the only party that was injured by the robbery was the insurance carrier. And since that was the same insurance carrier whose HR official had Jimmy separated from his job for his undisclosed limp, clever members of the audience will have seen the ultimate point of the plan was to get back at the insurance company who unjustly humiliated him. I read that note after watching it. I don't remember any dialogue saying it was the same insurance company, but I love that aspect of it, if that's true. And yeah, it's just a really, really, really good time. Like, everybody's doing some kind of acting you're not used to seeing them do. Even Seth MacFarlane, everybody is playing a character, but they all feel human. And you're right. It's the relationship with the daughter that gives this movie a little leg up on a run-of-the-mill comic heist movie, because it does carry a little bit of heart there at the end. And I love the Ford dealer guy's reaction when he comes out and sees his car after she's driven it. I love that actor. It seems like he's always playing like put upon husbands or what have you. But
David Denman, I think, is his name. If I remember correctly.
I wouldn't know, but yeah. So yeah, no, I really liked it this time through. And yeah, it only went up in my esteem.
Same. Yeah, it goes up every time I watch it. I think there's some things that I noticed this time that I kind of wanted to go into, which is, I don't think I ever really realized how much I love this movie because of the sibling relationship between these three. So like, they feel so genuinely like brothers and sisters when they interact. Like, coming out of the first my first watch, I was so struck by Adam Driver, his performance in this, that I think I kind of focused on that above everything else. But the way Channing and Driver and Riley interact together is just so perfect. And it gives this movie, like, you are rooting for them so much, just as this family who's been, put upon to just kind of pull it off or whatever. And I was just really aware of that this time. I still think the Driver performance is probably my favorite, but them together is really, really fun. The other... Go ahead. No. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think it's interesting that you brought up Little Miss Sunshine as a reference in your thing, because that movie also has a pageant, and the girl in that movie is told not to eat too much ice cream because it'll make her fat.
Yeah.
That has to be reflected in the real world, right? I mean, that has to be a lot of what's going on.
Yes.
Anyway, sorry, go on.
Yeah. It is definitely one of those things as a culture we need to wrestle with. And I think this movie is making some interesting points. You mentioned, the FBI agent and what the Hilary Swank character is doing there at the end and all those kind of things. And I think the point the movie is trying to make is that she is the only one that sees through the geographical bias that most of us have against Southerners. Like, most everybody in the movie is like, these people could do this, like, there's, these hicks could, pull this off. All the news, all the nicknames about the, the Southern, the hillbilly, the hee-haw, robbery or whatever, like, it's all this derogatory, typical stuff you hear about, like, the Southerners. And so we have this geographical bias that also means stupid, but deliberate and even slow doesn't necessarily mean unintelligent. And so that slowed down kind of lifestyle, Southern lifestyle or whatever, doesn't necessarily mean that they aren't sharp as tacks underneath, right? And so the Hilary Swank character is the only one who sees through that natural bias, and so the movie is kind of making that point, I think, throughout. This is kind of a love letter to Southern culture in many ways, and thankfully it doesn't go into more of the problematic concerns with Southern culture, but it does allow the ideas of kind of that Southern laid-back lifestyle to come through, whether it be through the love it shows to NASCAR, or you mentioned the Leanne Rimes singing the national anthem. That's a very Southern mentality. It's a country singer. It's, proud to be an American. It's actually not the national anthem, right?
It's America the Beautiful.
America the Beautiful, right? So
the fourth verse.
Yes. So I think that's all very intentional. I mean, I think there is an intentional, Soderbergh is doing something very intentional culturally to say, that there is this bias that we experience towards here that I'm going to subvert a little bit in this movie. So yeah, I found all that stuff very affecting, but I do feel like the pageant where she decides to sing, Country Roads is the heart of the movie. And it's just, the way he looks at her in that movie, and you just know everything you need to know about the choices he's making and what he's trying to do. So yeah, that's all good stuff. By the way, somebody asked in the comments what the other two movies that used Country Roads as a plot point were in 2017. That would be Kingsman: The Golden Circle, and Alien Covenant. Both have Country Roads as an actual plot point, not just like sung in the movie, but that song actually determines something happening in the plot. In Kingsman, he's singing it because he's on a landmine, and it's a way to keep himself calm and from moving or whatever. So like, yeah, it's just funny how songs will do that. Old songs will pop up in the consciousness that way. So yeah. I have a few comments from Chris. Do you want me to read? Chris did.
That sounds great. Yeah.
Have some thoughts on this movie, even though he wasn't able to be with us today. He says, I like Logan Lucky better than Ocean's 11. That's a strong That's a strong start. Nice hot take from Chris right out of the bat. I relate to the characters better. I'm not sure if it's because they're Southern like me or because they're more relatable than the Clooney pit crew. I think that's a good point. Soderbergh, much like in Oceans, doesn't really care whether you think any of this heist is possible or not. And that's totally fine for this movie. As soon as you raise one question, the movie has zipped on to the next thing before you can even put too much thought into it. I think Riley Keough steals every scene she's in. I think Katie Holmes is wasted for this role as divorced wife of one of the main characters. Adam Driver is a lot of fun, and Channing Tatum continues to be solid in a world that I didn't think he would succeed in when I saw Step Up way back in the day. So yeah, I echo a lot of those thoughts. Actually, I think the Katie Holmes role does feel, tertiary to the entire movie.
It's weird that you use somebody that high profile on that role, I guess. And I read in researching that it was actually Katherine Heigl originally, and she had to back out due to scheduling, and they brought in Katie Holmes. I think both of those are probably wasted on that role, but we don't know what was shot that was then cut that may have made more sense in that casting, I guess.
Yep.
Don't forget, Andy Garcia was in Dangerous Minds.
Yeah.
You just don't ever see him because they cut his entire subplot out of that movie.
Movies are weird, man. It's just wild to think.
Who's the guy? Oh, is Adrian Brody that went to film The Thin Red Line?
Thin Red Line.
The whole movie was about his character.
Yeah, he thought he was the main character. Yeah,
he saw the final cut, and he's not
barely in the movie.
I'm hardly here at all.
That's like, can you imagine just going to a premiere, just being like, "I'm about to show you my new masterpiece."
I can't even fathom how disheartening that. You can't leave.
No.
At some point you realize it, but then you got me like, maybe I'm going to be more in the end. Maybe I'll be more in the end. No, I'm not in the end. Yeah.
You feel like there should be more communication to actors if that happens. Like, you feel like the director should reach out and just be like, "Hey, I need you to know I really wanted to keep you in, but it just for the movie's sake, not your performance. It wasn't your performance, I promise. It's just the movie, what the movie needed."
I think most directors that aren't Terrence Malick would actually try to make that conversation happen. Malick is just stuck working on his masterpiece.
Yeah.
Can't think about anything else, I guess. All right. Are we ready for the super secret double feature?
Yes.
Singular?
Be very, very quiet.
Secret? What secret?
Our dirty little secret.
I tell you something I've never told anyone.
Chris sent one too. Chris sent
He did?
Yes, he sure
He didn't
did.
send it to me.
He didn't. Oh, maybe he didn't want. That's super secret. He didn't want you to know,
you
Jeremy.
go first then, because I am too wrecked by my past actions to go first. I can't do it.
All right. Chris's super secret double feature would be Raising Arizona, which I think is a really great pick. My guess is it has a lot to do with the Southern charm, the Southern tone, those kind of things.
Comic element.
Yeah, the comic heisty elements of
They
it.
steal a baby in that, right?
They do. They steal some diapers for sure. Yeah.
I haven't seen that in ages. It's been forever.
Yeah.
I'm ashamed. Oh, that's a good pick, though. I mean, I know it super well. I have 8 listed.
Cool. Let's go through them all.
I don't think we're going to do all of them.
Okay. All right.
I'm going to give you 2 because there are 2 things about this movie that I really wanted to replicate, and I couldn't really find any single movie that had them both. So one is the comic nature of the tone of the movie and the heist itself.
Right.
That it makes you laugh. There's jokes. And for that, I got Sneakers.
Nice.
Again, these are not Southern people. These are not unlucky people. These are not people necessarily heisting cash. But there is a heist. And there's comedy. My best double feature, the one I would actually program if we were going to do this for real, would be Hell or High Water. Because of the brother relationship, the sibling relationship in their heisting actions. I feel like the Adam Driver, Channing Tatum relationship, and Riley Keough, but that brother relationship is spelled out right in the beginning in that bar when Channing Tatum's like, "You better talk to him nicer. He did 2 tours in Iraq, and he's my brother," and yada, yada. And it just carries on through. And so Hell or High Water also comes through with that we're stealing from the people who did us wrong thing, because they end up stealing from the bank that's trying to foreclose on their mother's house.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go. Double feature would be Hell or High Water. If you really need some laughs, go with Sneakers.
I also thought of Lady Killers, maybe. Like, there's a little bit
I thought of Lady Killers.
Yeah. There's a little. That was one of your 8 that you didn't mention. Yeah.
because there's comedy, there's Southern drawl.
Yep.
There's,
Yeah, exactly.
The plan doesn't quite go. Yeah, man, I think that's a good one.
Yeah, I think
We're getting good at this.
We should talk about movies. We should do that more. We should do that for a living or something.
We should do it again next week.
We should suggest these things.
We need to get into the homework for next week, and I believe it's Chris's turn. Is that correct?
That is correct.
What do we got for next week for everybody?
Next week, we are going to be watching and discussing LA Confidential. So that will be the homework for next week. I believe it's all over the place. Several streaming services and pretty
Looks like
easy
it's
to
at
find.
least on Hulu and Disney. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think if you want to watch it for free, you can with ads on Plex. I think as well.
Nice.
So
This is an infamous show or movie to fans of our previous podcast, the Sincast, because we did a bracket
right.
for every single year of the best movie of the year. And this movie lost to Sideways. And I remember we had a listener who said, I asked my film professor what was better between LA Confidential and Sideways. And he said, anybody that picks Sideways doesn't know what they're talking about. Oh, man, that's so funny. I have actually seen this since that episode, but it has been a couple of years. And what I remember about it is that it is a solid mystery with really good performances all around and steeped in that old Hollywood vibe. And I can't wait to get back to it. And we have time for a few questions. Aaron, would you like to do a few questions?
Question. I got something to say. I want the truth. I am listening.
Sure. Let me pull those up and see what I've got here. Let's see. I don't think we've done this one. Yeah. Which director would you like to see remake which movie? So you get to pick the director and the movie they are remaking. So which director would you like to see direct which movie?
I can tell that I answered this question around the time that I finally watched for the first time and then later recommended on here, Lawrence of Arabia. Because my answer is Denis Villeneuve doing Lawrence of Arabia. Now, Denis Villeneuve does not seem to have any problem remaking other people's movies or doing long gestated sequels to other people's movies. And I think he could take his visuals to this story. And I think, as I wrote in the email, it would be orgasmic.
I agree. I'd love to see Villeneuve do anything, but specifically Lawrence of Arabia would be amazing. I went with a combination of director and subject matter. I went. I need to see Brian De Palma's The Truman Show. So, De Palma is always about media and about, the idea of technology being, part of what observes us and who we are. And I'd be really interesting to see his more adult kind of take on The Truman Show. So
I want to see, everything you just said is great, and I completely agree with it. But being a De Palma fan, I want to see his visuals on this thing, man.
Yes, that too.
Because I think he could do a lot of cool split diopter stuff with Christoph and Paul Giamatti in the background, Truman and somebody who's in on it in the background. These big sweeping pans where he just lets the camera sit for a long. Oh man, I think that's a great idea. I love that.
I think it'd be fun.
So we should make a podcast doing this.
Chris had his answer here. I'll go ahead and let you know what Chris's answer was. Speaking of Soderbergh today, Chris says, honestly, Steven Soderbergh or Quentin Tarantino or Barry Sonnenfeld doing Be Cool, since they all knocked Elmore Leonard's novels out of the park in the 90s.
Nice.
Sonnenfeld actually directed the adaptation that came before this, Get Shorty. Be Cool was directed by F. Gary Gray, who can be great, but I don't know that this was his kind of material. Soderbergh's Be Cool would be cool, for sure.
Yeah. If I'm honest, I could say Denis Villeneuve in any movie in history, and I would be down for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He's earned my excitement for his upcoming projects. All right, let's do another question.
Do you want to go to the comments? See what some of the comments have to
forget
say?
how to host. Let's go to the comments.
Castor says Christopher Nolan doing Primer. Smart.
Ooh.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, that's good.
I mean, I don't know. I get it. Primer's hard enough to get through. You give the director of Tenet Primer, and
let's make Primer, but you can't hear the dialogue.
It's overpowered by.
yes. Another Nolan, Christopher Nolan's remake of Dumb and Dumber.
That's awesome. I mean, I know none of us expected him to make The Odyssey, but the idea of him doing like a slapstick comedy,
why not?
Just feels so antithetical to me.
Everybody wants a Nolan movie. Jetsmet says Nolan remaking Ghostbusters. There you go.
You make it real and not funny. That could be something.
Yeah. Let's see. JCD says Joseph Krasinski remaking Wings, 1927.
Joseph Krasinski making anything.
Yeah.
He's on my list, my good list, not the naughty list.
Michael Bay redoing Sin City. That's a troll answer right there, Jeremy. That's what that is. That's a troll answer right there.
That's why I didn't say anything.
Tarantino remaking Heat.
I'll tell you what, the dialogue would take a step up, but that movie really is dialogue subdued anyway. That movie is as much about mood as it is dialogue. But that coffee scene between De Niro and Pacino it's already great, but it would crackle if you gave it some Tarantino.
Let's see. Lolly says Greta Gerwig remaking Pretty Woman to fix the issues. I love that idea. Yeah, she would do really good with that.
That's actually a great idea because that movie is kind of problematic.
Mm-hmm.
And we could set it in England and they could have chips.
It's fair. She could make it part of her remaking women trilogy. She just need a third one after Little Women and Pretty Woman.
Well, sorry, she's moved on to Lion, Witch in the Wardrobe.
Yeah, she has. I'm excited. Let's see. Michael Mann doing Blade Runner. Okay. Cool. Oh, no, here's one. Nolan says Edgar's remaking The Mist. That's dark.
It is dark.
Yeah. That would be dark. And then another trolley answer, Kubrick doing Hot Tub Time Machine. So he would need a hot tub. We would need a hot tub time machine to make that happen.
We would indeed.
There you go.
Do I really got to be the guy that said we got in that hot tub and went back in time?
Do I really? All right. You want another question?
Let's do one more.
All right. Take away one aspect of a bad movie to make it better. Take away one aspect of a bad movie to make it better. Start with a bad movie, take something away, and that makes it better.
All right. I've talked about this ad nauseum, but we need to talk about Passengers and how Chris Pratt needs to not wake up Jennifer Lawrence on purpose. Now, we're talking about one fix. So in my one fix, I have actually re-edited this entire movie with a much more complicated fix. But the one simple fix is he wakes up on accident and she wakes up on accident. And everything else about the movie would play pretty okay. There you go.
Except
for the part,
that movie. Except for the part where the whole movie is about that decision.
Not really.
Like, that's the whole conundrum of the movie. Like, that's the whole thing I thought about coming out of that movie was like, what would you do in that situation?
No, Aaron.
Okay.
You would not wake her up. That's evil. He's evil. He's completely stealing her agency.
Yes. Agreed.
And then the movie wants it to be okay because the fix of the ship needs two people at the end.
Fair enough. Let's see. I think I would go with the end of the last reveal explanation of Us. I think that movie could benefit from a little bit more ambiguity at the end.
It does. It does give you enough to make you try and piece it together.
Yeah,
like the Hands Across America stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I don't necessarily think that, and it's downright scary as hell up until then. So
yeah,
that's a good answer.
Yeah, I think I would end that movie differently. So,
what does the chat have to say?
Let's see. Castro says Rise of Skywalker, dump Palpatine. I mean, we could spend an hour talking about things to change in Rise of Skywalker.
The kiss being one of them too.
Chewbacca's quote-unquote death. Jar Jar, sticking in the Star Wars universe. Lolly says Pretty Woman, but with more chips.
Yeah, there we go. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. That's the fix. Let's see. Take William Shatner out of the director's chair for Star Trek V.
Good step. That probably does fix a lot of it, even though somebody on this staff loves that movie. Is it you, Aaron?
Which one's 5?
The one where they search for God and there's like Spock's half brother.
No, I'm very unfamiliar with that one. I think I've only seen it once and it was a long time ago. I like Generations. That's the weird one that I like that everybody thinks is bad.
I'm gonna allow that because we were just talking about 5 and 5 is worse, so it's okay for today.
It's fair enough.
Skate by with Generations.
Let's see. Infinity War. Take out Peter hitting Thanos.
Oh,
I don't know.
Wait, what?
So they have Thanos.
Oh,
apparently.
they mean Peter Quill, not Peter Parker. I was like,
yeah.
Okay. Yes, I get that. I actually felt like that was a little overwrought myself. That in the moment to save the universe, he would be overwhelmed by his love for an alien he's been in a relationship with for, I don't know, a year or two. I mean,
yeah.
Anyway. All right. I think that's going to do it for today. Thank you to the chat for coming out, weighing in, keeping us honest, giving us good suggestions, and we appreciate you. And next week, we will be back at our normal time on Tuesday, the 8th of April at 11 o'clock.
It's actually going to be next Thursday, I believe. We had talked about.
I'm screwing this all up. All right, everybody. Next week's live recording will be Thursday. We'll post about it in the Discord when somebody smarter than me comes along.
I think same time. Thursday, same time next week. Yeah.
The actual audio podcast will still release on Monday. Your homework is LA Confidential. It's in a lot of places. It's great. Go watch it. And next week, we'll talk about it. Have a good day.
Bye everybody.
Be a part of the live show by being a member of the Sin Club at Patreon at patreon.com/cinemasins. Chat with us on the Cinemasins Discord at discord.gg/cinemasins or Cinemasins Twitter at Cinemasins, and email any comments or questions to Recotopia at cinemasins.com. That's RECOTOPIA at cinemasins.com.
Hello. I've decided to do today's show British.
All right, Governor.
And honestly, my ear's bad enough that like Irish and Scottish and English are all in the same basket for me. Like I can maybe, if you get Scottish enough, I'll know that it's Scottish. Like if you go overboard like Mike Myers, but they're all in the same boat here for me. My ignorant American
pants now. Look at the size of that melon.
Movie 50 times, man.
Yeah, no, that's a direction of Mike Myers' career that just never really happened. You know, he kind of either did the big, goofy, broad, silly comedies, or he did a weird part in a prestige kind of movie. You know, that's kind of been where he's gone. There's no like leading man Mike Myers.
No.
You know, just being charming and charismatic, you know, other than So I Think I Married an Axe Murderer, you know?
Yeah, and I think that movie has plenty of fans today. I don't know that it was a box office hit or anything.
Oh, no. I don't think it
has plenty of following today. But that's a very interesting observation because I don't think I can think of anything outside of those two categories, right? Shrek.
Like he popped up in Bohemian Rhapsody as like, you know,
right.
But again, it's a big, interesting, weird cameo type character. What Studio 54, I think he was in.
Oh, he's in that, but he's playing the owner of the club who's super eccentric.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting observation. Even Wayne's World Yeah.
It's a character, you know, like you get a sense like the closest we've ever seen to the actual Mike Myers is maybe Axe Murderer. You know what I mean?
I
Like,
think that's true. And even in that movie, he plays, you know, his father as this outlandish. Anyway, I need to watch that movie again. It's been too long. I wonder if I hope it holds up. How the Tigers doing?
well, the Tigers started off with the Dodgers, so that's not a great start to the season. They played them close-ish for all 3 games, but they lost all 3 games, and then they blew out whoever they played yesterday, I think. So, yeah.
Well, that's good. I mean,
they scored like 6 or 7 in the first inning yesterday, so I think they just kind of cruised to whatever that final score ended up being. They'll be fine. I think it'll be interesting to see them try to build on that late season momentum they had last year and to see if they've actually got something, you know, with this scrappy group of youngsters, which tends to be the theme in Detroit. A scrappy group of youngsters describes the Pistons, the Lions, and the Tigers. So,
oh my.
Yeah, oh my.
And they got like arguably the best starting pitcher in baseball.
He seems great. He seems great. Yeah.
Too bad. I'm guessing he went out first against the Dodgers and had to eat that loss. That sucks.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we've had the best starting pitcher in baseball a few times before, and it hasn't resulted in you know, we had Verlander and Scherzer together.
Verlander.
It's baseball talk on Recotopia.
Did you see the French language Count of Monte Cristo from 2024?
No, I've heard good things though. I've got it on my watch list.
Me too.
Hoping to get around to it.
I really love the Jim Caviezel one.
I do too.
So, I don't know how different the story would be. I had such a weird experience watching that Ripley show because I'd seen the movie Talented Mr. Ripley so many times, and the show chose to leave out certain plots and characters that are in the movie.
Right.
And chose to add things that aren't. So I don't really know. I've never read the book. I don't know which one is truer to the source. So that's going to be the case here. If I watch this French language Count of Monte Cristo, I won't be able to compare it to the book. I'll only be able to compare it to the Kevin Reynolds one.
Yeah, I very rarely have read books relating to movies. In fact, other than Crichton, which I did most of those. No, I take it back. Crichton and Grisham. I did most of Crichton and Grisham when I was reading more fiction, and so I read those before I saw the movies. But then Lord of the Rings is really the only time I specifically read a book before I watched a movie. And for whatever reason, I just felt like it was important. It just felt important to me to read Tolkien's Lord of the Rings before I saw Jackson's Lord of the Rings. I don't know why. That was a weird one for me.
Well, I did the same thing, and I think a lot of people did because there was a lot of talk as he was making the films about how faithful he was going to be to the books.
Right, yeah. And
now,
yet that he had to leave some stuff out and because there's just too much to film.
And you know, do some stuff with Liv Tyler's character.
Right.
But only the super duper purists are going to be bothered by that.
Right.
But I also lived with, for several years, actual like Tolkien fiend.
Hobbit? Oh, a Tolkien.
And yes, a Hobbit. It does get a bit much for me when he goes on for pages in Elvish.
It's a lot. Yeah.
There's a lot of, but I feel like a lot of great authors do this. Like from what I understand, George R.R. Martin, I haven't read the Song of Fire and Ice books, but I understand that he will spend pages and pages just describing a feast on the table. And like, I loved, why am I blanking on his name? Hunt for Red October and
Clancy?
Present Danger, Clancy. I loved his books, but he would spend half a chapter describing like the structure of a naval destroyer and
right.
where everything is in it. And I'm like, you're having fun. You're geeking out. You're looking at a model of this ship on your desk as you write this. Whereas I just want to know where the guy with the gun is. Let's get back to that.
Right. Yeah.
So I feel like that's fairly common for at least for me, for there to be passages in famous books where I'm like rolling my eyes going, all right, let's get on to this thing. But
Yeah.
Not that I don't respect that, because he created an entire language. Like, it's not that I don't respect the Elvish. It's just that I'm not going to try and read it.
I'm trying to think what the loriest I've been with my beloved IPs is. Like, which IP that I love have I, gone the deepest on the lore with? And maybe I'm just not a lore guy. Like, because I didn't read any of like the Star Wars books or, any of that kind of stuff. I don't know a lot of the canon, for Star Wars, even though I love the property. Lord of the Rings, I read the book, but like I haven't read the Silmarillion or,
You don't really read the Silmarillion as much as I mean...
Well, it's the fact that I don't know that should say that I'm not,
you
like a lore
read it. It's words. I'm just saying it's like an encyclopedia. It's not a narrative.
Yeah.
But, and yeah, I'm sure there are people that read it. I'm not trying to insult people here in the outtakes. I love reading the Silmarillion, but...
Yeah.
Yeah. I read a shit ton of Star Trek The Next Generation paperbacks.
Right. Star Trek's a big one for a lot of people, yeah.
Anytime we would go on any kind of trip, I would buy one or two of those. They were always cheap. And I loved that show, and reading the book felt like experiencing a movie of that show.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a lot of Batman comics and have read a lot of Batman over the years. I think those would be the two loriest lore that I've ever lored.
Because like the stuff that I have been, I guess maybe it would be X-Files. I bet it's X-Files. Because I did go beyond just the TV show with that. I did a lot of, digging into external content. I mean, there wasn't a ton of it, but there were some books and some different things. So,
did you do any of the Lost website Easter egg digging?
I did.
Whatnot?
I guess I just didn't feel like that was there wasn't a ton there necessarily.
No, there wasn't.
But I did love Lost as well. But I bet it's X-Files. I bet that's the loriest I've ever been with something is the X-Files stuff, which is frustrating considering that stuff went kind of nowhere. So
if they had like paperback novel offshoots of your favorite Pixar movies, would you buy those?
Right. I don't know. Maybe, like I said, maybe I'm just not a lore guy, but like, yeah, like if there was like an Incredibles comic book run or something,
that actually sounds amazing.
I know, that's why it came out of my mouth.
Hey everyone, I need to jump in here for a minute. This is Jonathan, your friendly neighborhood Recotopia editor, and I just wanted to make everyone aware that this last segment of Outtakes is a bit spoilery on Yellow Jackets Season 3. So if you haven't seen Yellow Jackets Season 3 and you want to remain spoiler-free, then I highly recommend you stop listening to the podcast now. But you won't miss anything else. This is the last section of the Outtakes. If you have seen Season 3 or you just don't care and don't mind the spoilers, then I hope you enjoy. It is a really funny discussion. And so, yeah, everybody enjoy and carry on, please.
Before we go, I will say, speaking of X-Files, you're out on Yellow Jackets, right? You're done. You haven't watched since season 1?
No, I mean,
beginning of season 2-ish.
I watched almost all of season 2 and just grew really, really freaking bored. And I watched the first episode and a half of season 3 and wasn't drawn back in. So
okay, all right.
Anything interesting happening there?
Yeah, I mean, I will say overall they are answering some things that feel like the show has a point of view on the mystery of the show, which is that it feels like that the show is going to explain what's actually happening, as opposed to just saying there's, like Lost was very much, no, there is mystery, there is mystic, there is, supernatural, right? Lost was like, there is supernatural. And Yellowjack seems to be saying there isn't supernatural, like nothing is actually supernatural that's going on.
There's actually a fungal gas leak that's making them all insane.
I can't tell if you've watched like you've read stuff or not.
No, I was there was that family that died.
No,
in California because there was like
it's great. It's just great that you just accidentally spoiled the end of Yellow Jackets. season 3.
Keep doing this shit. What is wrong with me? No, I had not read that. All I had read was that Joel McHale was on this season. That's all I know.
He is. Gas leak. It features very prominently in season 3. Anyhow, it's amazing. It makes what I was gonna say less amazing, which is just that more slight spoilers for Yellow Jackets season 3. When the others, their version of the others, if you remember Lost, show up, Joel McHale or whatever on their camp or whatever, they start peppering them with questions, and one of the girls is just like, "Do Mulder and Scully get together? Do Mulder and Scully get together?" It's like that's the biggest thing she needs to know.